We're going to call our next panel, which will include Ray Garcia, Andrew Brust, and Todd Stavish. You can go right ahead. Please introduce yourself.
Very good. Thank you. My name's Andrew Brust. I help run a consulting firm, 26 New York, here in Manhattan. I'm also a technology columnist and blogger and serve on the New York Technology Council's advisory board. As I've explained in previous testimony to this committee, I'm a lifelong New Yorker and began my IT career in the employ of the government of the city of New York. And I'm going to excerpt myself so that I can fit in the time limit. I've testified to this committee before, voicing my support for open government data. I'll reiterate today that I feel the benefits of publishing data from all city agencies are huge. One thing I'll say is the prospect of opening up each data stream in each agency might seem daunting to city IT professionals. I would encourage DoIT and the individual agencies to conceive of the requirement with the right mindset. Data feeds are just software services, and good software is built on the premise of designing a service layer at the foundation. So rather than taking the approach of building closed systems and then opening them up, agencies should premise the architecture of their systems on building the services and feeds first, and then layering the application logic and functionality on top of them. With this approach, open government data would become a byproduct of normal software development rather than a burdensome, discrete step. Ultimately, the thing to remember is that data is raw material, which the city government can refine only to a certain extent. Making the raw material available to the public allows a far greater amount of refinement and value to be added to that data than can be had by keeping it sequestered within the agency that has collected it. The city can directly benefit from its own open data, and that's because integration of systems between agencies will be much better facilitated through a normal data sharing regime than customized point-to-point data interchange. That will enable streamlined construction of numerous systems. For example, the mayor's management report should be much easier to produce, and the notion of a general inquiry system across all agencies for 311 becomes compellingly feasible. There are also nice possibilities for an enterprise data warehouse, scorecards, and so forth. I'm going to skip ahead with about 30 seconds left. Just to make you aware of something from, of all people, Microsoft. They've created a framework called the Open Government Data Initiative, and it was actually built by the organization that works with developers specifically in the U.S. public sector, in federal, state, local government. It's already carrying data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics and other agencies. It allows for download in CSV, Excel, and KML formats, and it's also Section 508 compliant. So look into that, and I'd be happy to answer other questions when the other testimony is done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Todd Stavish. I represent a company named Socrata, S-O-C-R-A-T-A. I'd like to thank the council for letting me speak today. Just a few key points in my testimony. We definitely agree with disseminating public data. It's the right thing to do. Doing so helps government be accountable, improve efficiency, and reduce costs, and ultimately stimulates economic growth, as some of the other testimony has shown. There's no need to build an open data solution from scratch in our mind. Socrata offers a purpose-built open data platform empowering governments and other organizations, large and small, to share their data in the widest array of data-consuming audiences. We've proven that for major cities like Seattle and Chicago, as well as some federal agencies and some states and counties. Socrata delivers a configurable, customizable platform as a cloud-based software-as-a-service solution. We are a market-driven service provider, and each organization invests a fraction of the cost to deploy a platform that represents that particular area of the government. Organizations benefit from this evolving platform as a monthly service subscription, and our plans range from hundreds to thousands of dollars, definitely much less than some of the projections and costs that some city governments have published. And that's basically it.
Thank you for having this session today and allowing us to speak to these issues. My name is Ray Garcia. An executive advisor to the Field Center for Entrepreneurship at Baruch College. So I have an interest in the entrepreneurial side of this and what it can do to enable developers to access this information and provide for economic development in New York. So I'm just going to get to the recommendations. The justification and rationale for it is in the testimony, and I won't go into the detail of that. So the first one is I suggest that the City Council consider mandating a vendor-neutral standard for all documents, including spreadsheets, presentation, graphics, video, sound, and all forms of electronic media. This is something that countries have done in reaction to proprietary formats. If the city was to adopt it, it would make it much easier to put that information online, make it searchable, and to allow for processing. The second thing is to adopt an open standard for data such as the resource description format schema, which expresses the ontology of the data, making it useful for information processing. Data.gov is a good example. Right there on the first page, they say the format that they've adopted. It's a very good example of what can be done with the data. I think New York City shouldn't reinvent this stuff. It should just, look to that example and maybe consider mimicking it. Third point is to mandate all government agencies to provide interoperability between their systems following the standards. This is a point that other people have made. Speaking, I think while the emphasis is to make the data accessible to the public, if the data was accessible between the agencies, then as a byproduct, it would be accessible to the public. So it makes sense that that should be part of the focus. The fourth point is require all software vendors providing solutions to New York City to support an open data format standard and open source. I won't go into this too much, but I don't think you can separate open data from open source. I think these two things are one and the same. This hasn't been, I know this is not the focus of this particular session, but I suggest that you consider it for future adoption. The concept of how does the software, an open software interface, and why is it important for open data? The last point is to set up a registry of people accessing and using the documents and data sets so the city can easily automatically communicate when updates are available, as well as provide a directory for citizens and businesses to find providers who have enhanced the data. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go back to Mr. Brust for one moment because I think you were just finishing up a thought about the Microsoft data system. So I'd like you just to finish your thought on that so we can understand it.
Sure. Again, it wasn't built actually by a product team in Redmond. It was actually built by the developer group that works with U.S. public sector. It's Section 508 compliant. It works with an open standard, believe it or not, even though it's from Microsoft, called OData. The data is published as XML, but it's fully queryable, both readable and writable. So the discussion you were having before about the read side and the write side, that all comes with it. And what you get is both machine-readable data format and a user interface that is Section 508 compliant. It's a starter kit, so it's not something you simply deploy as is. It's actually open source. It's .NET open source that can then be modified and implemented as you see fit.
Councilmember Brewer?
Mr. Garcia, my question is, I know your incubator program well, and how now do some of your companies or the ones you're incubating manage to use data? What are they looking for? What would be helpful, et cetera? You listed some of the ways this should be conceived, but I just want to know what goes on now.
Well, the data is accessed in whatever format is provided, and then developers struggle with trying to understand exactly what that data means, and then mashing it up with proprietary data that they receive. The more that the data is provided in a format that is similar, and the information about the data. So it's not just the data, it's the data about the data or the information about the data. The metadata is as important as the data itself. So the more that that's provided, the easier it is for
because they have to understand where it's coming from and the source and so on.
Right.
In order to do the work that they're doing.
Sure. The data represents the context in which it came to be, and without that context being carried forward, the semantics of what it means is very difficult to to assess and infer without a body of knowledge and without then going back to the source, right? So it's not just it's good that there's a start for the city to put. A lot of people are advocating just put text and throw up documents and throw up data, but frankly, I think the city's going to throw a lot of enormous amount of data. It's not going to be useful for entrepreneurs unless they can make sense of it, right? So it's important that the formats be self-describing, or that the data about the data, or the information about the data, or an ontology more accurately, is provided so that there's some sense could be made of it.
Well, that's why it's helpful to hear this, because I think different people have different uses. From the entrepreneur, it makes sense. We've heard from testimony earlier, get it up there no matter what. So it's good to hear both sides. Thank you.
And before we let you guys, want to note to a point made by Mr. Garcia, the bill also does require that it be in a non-proprietary format, the readability. So I just wanted to make that point. Well, thank you very much to all of you.